Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start off by thanking you very much for coming to the talk. My name is Edna Wangoi. I'm in Geography Department, and I'm one of the coordinators for the Wealth and Poverty theme. And that's the theme that's put together this series of talks that today's talk is one of. For undergraduate students who might not know what themes are, this is actually part of a way of reorganizing the general education courses so that for students who are interested, you can actually take a sequence of courses that is relevant around a particular theme. So for example, the one that Dr. Yang Kim and I are involved in focus on inequality within the US and inequality in an international context as well. So wealth and poverty is really the name of the theme. There are today's event and a series of others that have already taken place would not happen without the support that we received from two deans in particular, and that's the dean from the College of Arts and Sciences and the dean of Health Sciences and Professions. So we are very grateful for that generous support that has enabled us to put together this series of talks. Now, we only have 1 hour, so I don't want to take up too much time talking about themes, and I will introduce Dr. Gillian Ice to introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you. I'm a professor in social medicine, which is in the College of Osteopathic Medicine, and also the director of global health, and really excited to be involved in this theme because it's one of the things that we talk about is inequalities in health in a global context. And one of my classes is in the theme as well. But I'm really excited here to introduce Aggrey Otieno. I actually used a little snippet on YouTube in my course, so I'm really excited about having new material. But Aggrey is a graduate of Ohio University in the Communication and Development program. He's a master's from that program. And he was awarded the 2012-2014 Rolex Laureate Award for his work in developing a telemedicine center in Korogocho, which is a large slum in Nairobi, for the purposes of improving maternal child health. And this is called mBirth. It's a mobile phone app that provides health information via text messaging and connects providers with patients in a way that's just not accessible in that community. It's incredibly innovative. And when in the United States we move to higher and more expensive technology every day, it's really exciting to see someone use low-cost technology to improve access, to change that inequality in health so that poverty doesn't translate into poor health outcomes. He has a book about this called Condemning Women to an Early Grave, Innovating New Approaches to Combining Maternal and Neonatal Mortality in Kenya. I'm excited to read it. I haven't read it yet. But in addition to his maternal child health work, he's also been working in telemedicine more broadly, has worked on income generation projects among the urban poor, and also advocated for the rights of deaf children. And so we're really excited to have him back here and to share with us his experience of working on the ground to develop a project that has a great impact. So please join me in welcoming Aggrey Otieno.
Thank you so much, Julia. Hello. It's great being back to OU, this being my second time to come back since I graduated in 2011. And it's also very exciting to interact with some of the faculty members and also my colleagues whom we went to class together. And they really mentored some of the projects that I'm going to talk about them, because I remember the telemedicine project when we were trying to design it. I was in Dr. Tanya's class, and a lot of input that she gave me, including the classmates and also the ComDev students. So as you've seen, you'll be there. I'll be signaling you when I'm ready for the next slide. But you can see 4 logos on the slide. The topmost one on the left-hand side is Pambazuko Mashinani. So it is a grassroots awakening organization that I founded while I was a student here at OU. I remember reaching out to a number of faculty and students, and if you go to the website to realize that people who are board members in that organization are people who are here in Athens. And one of the projects that I started through Pambazuko Mashinani is a tuberculosis project that I raised resources in the year 2011. I was still a student by that time. And then we went back to Kenya in June, just after graduating. And I remember going to Kenya with about 15 people from OU, including Dr. Steve Howard. Then later on, we realized that as we move around the slums of Nairobi, Korogocho slum being the 4th largest slum in Kenya, people will always look up into me, and they'll be looking for handouts. Whenever I walk around the street, they'll be asking for money for lunch, and that kind of stuff. So later on, we ended up coming up with a company, which is Creative Farm. So basically, this is the company that is helping a number of youth within the slum areas to get opportunities where they can do consultancy work and also get business opportunities. Then the other one is Sacred Heart Circle. So it's a forum, a vehicle through which we are working with people within Nairobi. It is having about 4,800 people at the moment, and they save, they get entrepreneurship training, and also they get credit through the same. Then just recently, there is Aggrey Willis Foundation. So basically what you are doing now is me moving from doing a lot of implementation in person, but now trying to be at a level where we sub-grant other people to do stuff as I raise resources and do other professional engagements. So we'll move to the next slide. Korogocho is in Nairobi, northeastern part of Nairobi. And you can see on the other map is the map of Korogocho. It is a slum with about 300,000 people. It is divided in 8 major sub-villages. So you can see Gitadhuru. I know from behind you might not be able to see it, but this is where I was born, in this part of Korogocho. Unfortunately, the villages, people are organizing themselves and are residing according to ethnic groups where they are coming from. I don't know why they did that. So if you go to Gitadhuru, where I was born, there are some Kikuyus, Luos. It's a little bit mixed. But if you go to Gorgon A, which is on the top part, Gorgon A is here, Gorgon B is here, is almost 90% Kikuyus. Then Gorgon B is a little bit of Kambas are there. Kisumundogo, just like the name for those Kenyans who are here, I can see them smiling. So it's the small Kisumu city and has about 90% Luos. Then there is Nyayo, also 90% Luos. And then Korogocho A, which also has a bit of Kisii and other small tribes. Then High Ridge, which is predominantly inhabited by people from Somalia, Somali community, Borana, and such kind of stuff. So, like I had said in the first slide, we've made a number of initiatives, but it was not a walk in the park. It involved a lot of challenges. So I'm going to take you through where we started from in Korogocho. So Korogocho, as you can see from those 2 pictures, in terms of academic performance, it was very, very low. If you Google Korogocho, then you'll be coming across so many publications that are bringing on board very negative picture. So the mean score of Korogocho was at some point 221.5, but in Nairobi it's 272.2, but in the country it's 248.8 out of 500. So you can see that in Korogocho, people are not performing so well, but this is because of so many factors that are in play. Some of the factors are access to quality education. I remember during my time when I was in primary school, there was only one government-funded public school. So that meant that we were so many in class, about 60 or 70, with the only one teacher. So it was really, really challenging trying to study with very minimum resources, no teaching materials and learning materials. The maternal mortality rate in USA, probably you can correct me, is around 13 per 1,000 births, but in Kenya is 488. So you can see the number of times people in Kenya die when they are pregnant. But again, in Korogocho is 7 or 6. So it's extremely high. And one of the projects that Gillian mentioned, the telemedicine project, was designed to try to counter that problem. Now it is being said that in Kenya, at any given time, 5% of women are getting pregnant. Like now, somebody is getting pregnant. But now, out of this 5%, 15% have high chances of getting complications. 33% will end up developing complications, and then they'll need care. But now, out of all the 5% who got pregnant, 50% will go for antenatal care, and then they drop. So this means that a lot of behavior change communication is needed, a lot of awareness creation, and also lobbying so that they can have facilities where they can access this kind of services. The poverty is very high, and because of this, there is very high crime rate. It has been known for being the headquarters of Mungiki, for those of you who are very conversant with some criminal gangs in Kenya. And at the moment, there is also Siafu, Gaza, and Taliban. From those names, you can guess the kind of people they want to aspire to be, especially Gaza and Taliban. Then Korogocho, over the years, has been known as a voting machine for wealthy people. So people usually come because it is highly populated. It means that they are highly gullible people who are willing to vote. So they'll be given handouts during elections, and then they vote in people, and those politicians disappear. Then they'll be seen 5 years after election. Then they'll be given handouts again, nobody performs, and the cycle continues. Then Korogocho also has been known for being a home for street children and prostitutes. I remember when I was going to school in nursery and class 1, I had to sit with children who are sniffing glue. So in the next slide, you will see some of the things that now we've been doing and trying to reframe the new story of Korogocho. So in the past, the roads were highly muddy, they were impassable. Now, most of them, almost 90% of roads in Korogocho have been tarmacked, thanks to the efforts that we are doing in the community. There are so many prostitutions going on, like one part of Korogocho in Gitaduru, where I was born, there's a section of it that was known as Kambimoto. So Kambimoto directly translates as the camp of fire, basically because so many people there were having HIV/AIDS. So it is changing. Since people never had opportunities to get legally or to get income-generating opportunities and to also improve their income. Now, a number of them, through our efforts, are having other opportunities through which they can make use of their own skills and also some crafts so that they can earn income. And you can see the other end now, some permanent buildings are cropping up, and you can even see children doing skating for the first time. And I remember sometimes this year they went to South Africa for some skating competition, something that would have never happened before during our time. So tarmac roads are there. They are clean and well-lit streets. And homes, at the moment, some homes have electricity, even though most of them are still mud walled. There is improved security and community policing, and later on you will see how we've been doing it. Then the residents are becoming more assertive. And I remember in the year 2013, for the first time ever, a councillor, I don't know it is equivalent of what here? MCA? No. Oh, so for the first time ever, somebody who is in that seat is from Korogocho. Then there is organized garbage collection system. But how have we been able to do this? What we've been doing, making use of, is community organizing concept. Community organizing is the process by which people come together to identify common goals, to identify problems, raise resources, strategize on how to execute their activities, and also to make sure that they accomplish the objectives that they've set themselves to do. And you can see from the other pictures, just some times back, about 3 months ago, I had one of the community events in the periphery of Korogocho, and as you can see, a number of people are turning up in our events, and we're using these events to mobilize people, and then we organize them so that they can now start addressing issues that are challenging them. For you to effectively do community organizing, a number of things come into play. There are a number of factors that you have to consider for your community organizing effort to be successful. One is you must gain understanding of the community. For me, it has been very, very easy because I was born in Korogocho. But again, you have to do a lot of research. You have to know who is there, who are the opinion leaders, what kind of resources you can leverage on, what kind of skills are there, and what gaps are there that you can capacity build so that you work towards a common goal. And there is also the use of making people's power, bringing people together so that you organize them and make use of the power of numbers so that they can bring change. There is also the aspect of political and legislative power. I remember in 2010, when we went back home, before coming to OU, I was working with a child right-based organization. And we were doing a lot of advocacy so that we can curb the high human trafficking that was going on in the country. Kenya, according to US Department of State TIP report that they publish every year, including this year, it is out already. It will always indicate that Kenya is a destination, source or transit point for human trafficking. So what we did was to try to peg some of the ideas that we have into law so that people can hold the government accountable. And we advocated for Trafficking in Person Act that was signed in the year 2010 and now is in force. So at the moment, people can go to court, hold people accountable, arrest perpetrators, and again, we have a legal framework through which that can be done. Then the other one is consumer power, and many people have been making use of demonstrations. Personally, have participated in a number of them so that you can highlight some of the problems and challenges that people go through. At the same time, you make sure that as you do it, you also bring on board the media so that they can cover. Then the other one is the legal regulatory power. For example, later on you'll learn that we have a community radio, Coach FM 99.9. I know some of you have had the opportunity of visiting it. When you hear Coach FM 99.9, you'll think that it is a big thing. But basically what you did was to look for a container, those ones for transiting goods. I got a friend from Sweden, and we concocted something, and I later on learned that it was the transmitter, and we went on air. One day later, the CCK, which is the authority that authorizes people to have those kinds of things in Kenya, they learned about us, they came to Korogocho, and they wanted to arrest us. The good thing is the community was already owning the radio station. It was the first time ever that a slum was having a radio of their own. So when they tried to arrest us, then we all went to town, and what happens? 2 days later, we have a frequency, 99.9 FM. So that one really worked for us. Then the other one is the legal regulatory power. So this is where already you have laws in place to address challenges that you face. And then somebody probably, you want to do a lot of advocacy. Like in Korogocho, we have these devolved funds that have been there. Some of you are aware of Constituency Development Fund, for example. So the councillor, which have not been able to know the equivalent of the same here, had some funds that they were supposed to be the chairman of. They become patrons of the same so that they can channel them to where needs are within the community. So through these funds, people who are very bright in the community were supposed to be accessing bursary for them to go to high school and colleges. A percentage of the funds were meant for women empowerment and youth empowerment projects. Some of it was to go to infrastructure development. So what happened is we learned that about 14.3 million Kenya shillings just disappeared. The councillor was given money, nothing happened, but if you look at the reports that were given to the government, it was accounted for. So there were receipts and such kind of things. So what we did was to come back to the community and start asking them. For example, they had indicated that they had constructed some classrooms in one section of Korogocho. So he went to the head teacher in charge of the school and asked them, can you show us where the 3 classrooms are? Some of them were shocked that it was reported that they had classrooms built for. We go to another area, they were saying that they have electrified street lights in Korogocho. So we'll ask the resident, can you show us where the electricity poles are? So through this thing, we were able to agitate people, make people become aware that something is going on, and then organize them. So through legal regulatory power, we went to court, and eventually the guy refunded money. The other one is disruptive power. Most of the time, personally, I've never made use of it, but Kenyans who are here know Boniface Mwangi very well. He has been very, very good in doing these kind of things. And as you can see from the upper part last year, you know Kenya has been becoming more corrupt and corrupt and corrupt, especially our politicians. So what happened is he looked for some pigs, as you can see in that photo, a number of them, almost 50 pigs. And our parliament was opening for session. As you can see, that gate is the entrance to our parliament. And he dropped those pigs there. He went to somewhere else and bought some blood, cow blood, and then spilled them on the road. So you know when you do that to the pigs, then they get food, and that is what happened. So pigs were very busy, but in essence what it meant is that it attracted the attention of the media, and also it didn't enable politicians to access the parliament, because it was a very, very important session that was to go on in the parliament at that time. So a lot of media coverage went on. As you can see on the bottom line, probably the picture is not very clear, but those are coffins, 347 coffins. So we have 347 members of parliament. So each member of parliament had their own coffin. But before I go to the coffin, you can see these other are small pigs, but there is one big pig over here. So this one actually was for Duale. So the name Duale was written beside it. They can laugh. Duale is somebody who is very, very powerful in Kenya. Actually, he's the one who leads government business in parliament. So was given the fat pig because they are the ones who are getting a lot of money and allowances. Then the one that was bigger in size, second biggest in size, was for Jacoyo Midiwo. So Jacoyo Midiwo was the one who was leading opposition interest inside the parliament. And you know, Duale is a Muslim, so it was really, really bad for him. Then down here, each one of them had a coffin. So what they did was to bury them. Unfortunately, physically, they're still alive. So another thing that you also need to put into mind when doing community organizing is you must be in a position to articulate issues. You have to be in a position to attract people to come to you and convince them and influence them and make them see that there is a problem, make them see that they have the solutions from within, and make them see that they have the capacity to execute whatever strategy that they've come up with. So I remember we have Coach FM, as you can see in the second picture below, the community radio that we have in Korogocho. So because of the kind of programs that we are having within the community, some of them were programs that were geared towards making our leaders and politicians more accountable and also more efficient in terms of managing resources that we had. So there was a time we ran a story about the 14.3 million. It was very successful. We really got excited. We did more research and learned that the member of parliament at that time also had embezzled some money, about 19 million. So we are running all these things on the radio program and also the newspaper that I had founded in the slum. So what they did at that time was to talk to the chief. I know some of you are aware about the chief. They are very, very powerful people. They are in charge of a village like Korogocho. So one day I received a phone call that entrance to Coach FM has been locked. So what we did was to rush to the community center where the station is. We looked for gadgets and we removed the padlock. The following day, again, it was locked with the 2 administration police officers standing at the gate. So what we did now was not to confront them because they had guns. And then 2 days later, we got a letter that had been backdated, notifying us that we need to relocate, to move out of where we are, so that they can do other things for that space that where Korogocho FM has been occupying. So what we did was to go to the district officer. It is at a higher level than the village, and try to talk to them so that we can be allowed to continue operating whatever we are doing in the radio station. So the district officer never gave us time even to talk to her. So we went to the provincial commissioner. So good enough, I was a student at Moi University, and during my time, the district commissioner who was in charge of that area, Oshegishu district, had been promoted to become the provincial commissioner for Nairobi. So it was very easy for me now to access office because we had a very good relationship when I was a student. So that shows how you need to start networking with people when you are here. You never know what will happen to Edna when he moves from OU. So we were given space to talk. We argued our case, and the PC ordered that the status quo remains. So that was, we really were in a position to articulate issues and to bring on board a number of people so that they can work for us. Then the other thing is we've had a planning session. Before meeting the PC, what we did is that at the community center, when we were growing up as youth within the slum community, there was no space sometimes back. As you are aware, in the slum communities, spaces are not available. So what Action Aid did was to construct for us some public amenities, some halls where people can do acting, some small space where children can play, and such kind of stuff. So later on, because of insecurity in Korogocho, the government asked that we relocate so that those halls and the rooms that were within that community can be used for housing the police. So before even the police came on board, we demanded to have a memorandum of understanding with the government on how the community center is going to be managed. And what happened that the chief didn't know was that the MOU existed and that the community was given a lot of power in terms of managing the same, and that the chief was only allowed to sit in the committee, the executive committee that managed the center as an ex officio. So when we went there, we unleashed. I remember on that day I borrowed a suit. I was still not in a position to buy a suit of my own. So we went to Nyayo House, and we demanded to have audience. And one of the things that I unleashed was that MOU. The chief was not prepared. So the case was based on the MOU that we had signed. So it was overruled that the chief has got no power to make us relocate. Then the other one is involve people. We had done a lot of things, and later on we will learn in Korogocho, even before going to high school. I remember in the year 1999, I'm a Catholic myself, so what usually happened, especially during Christmas and those holidays, especially religious-related ones, is people go for night vigils. So in December 31st, 1999, there was a night vigil that was going on in Korogocho, and that is the time that even those small girls, especially those ones that people cannot see during the day, were usually allowed to go to church. So what happened is that a number of our colleagues within the community decided to rape. So girls were raped, so many of them. So it happened that one of the girls who got raped was my girlfriend. And the person who raped her was somebody whom I knew. So the police, as usual, what they'll do is, can you arrest them? Of course, they disappeared. But now we decided that we need to have a stop of this kind of thing happening in the community. We need to create awareness and enact behavior change so that people can start looking at girls and women as their sisters, as their mothers, as their aunties, and such kind of things. So we came up with the Miss Coach. So Miss Coach is just like Miss USA, Miss Kenya, and such kind of thing. But what we did was to talk to Father Alex Zanotelli, who was an Italian priest in charge of St. John Catholic Church. That was the Catholic church based at Korogocho community. We talked to him so that he can give us an opportunity to do the beauty pageant within the locality of the church. What happened is that we had a lot of resistance from the church elders. One, they were asking us, how can you bring girls who are almost naked to strut within the church? So it was like we are going to influence other girls who are good church goers to develop different behavior. So later on, we got a space somewhere else, and we did the first Miss Coach. So after doing it, people started embracing girls, and the issues of rape, I think up to now, I've not had any rape cases at large scale the way it happened in 1999. So later on, in the year that followed, in the year 2000, by that time I was a second-year student, almost going to second year in my undergrad. We realized that a number of girls within Korogocho are not able to access secondary high school. During those days, going to school was extremely, extremely expensive because there were no government subsidies. So what we did was to organize another beauty pageant in Korogocho with the hope that people who are outside Korogocho will come to Korogocho and maybe start walking the walk with us in terms of addressing the challenges that we are facing. So the beauty pageant that happened in 2000 was never successful. There were so many people who came from the community, but all the people whom we invited outside the community never turned up. So we went back to evaluation mode. What happened that made these people not to come? Then you realize that the problem was security. They were fearful that if you drive to Korogocho, by the time the event ends, all the wheels of your car will be gone. They were fearful that by the time you walk into Korogocho, you are never sure of living with your valuables, your phone and such kind of things. So that really, really scared them. So the Miss Coach event that followed in the year 2001, what we did is if people cannot come to Korogocho, we can make Korogocho go to them. So what we did was to look for those five-star hotels where guys are comfortable to sit, discuss, and dine. So I remember going to Hilton Hotel, went to Hilton Hotel, talked to them. We told them that we did our own research and realized that from September, like now, to early November, it is low season, so they don't have a lot of guests and activities going on in the hotel. So we asked them, if you give us an opportunity, we are able to bring guests about 200 and we'll be creating business opportunity for you. We pay you cash prior. So they said, okay. They gave us the benefit of doubt. So what we did was now to talk to different people who are outside Korogocho, especially those ones who are working with different NGOs, because so many NGOs were implementing interventions in Korogocho. So we talked to them, can you sponsor your staff, probably a table, 20 of them, so that they can have dinner as we chat and discuss issues that affect us as a community. So about 400 guests turned up. Each guest was paying about $2,500. That is about $20, $25 at the moment. So about 400 people paid in advance that they were coming. But what we did was now to do the beauty pageant inside the hotel. We did one for the community people, and then the second one at Hilton Hotel. So it was so many people came on board. But what happened that people never knew that we did was to negotiate with Hilton Hotel. Instead of paying one plate $2,500, we paid $1,500. And that meant that we remained with 1,500 shillings per person. So the beauty pageant that followed in the year 2002, we did another one in the hotel. Of course, the hotel has now trusted us, and they knew that we are going to pay them well. And as much as we are coming from a very insecure, where people are known to be thieves and such kind of things. And something happened. We did something to people. They were sitting the way you were sitting, and we brought about 40 girls that we had paid their school fees using the money that we got in the previous year. They were in their uniform, we had their video clip, and everybody was shocked. They were like, why didn't you tell us that this was the intention that you took the money from us? So from that time, people started contributing, and we had about 1 million that was raised in that night. We opened an account, and before you open an account, you must have some legal entity, and we registered Miss Koch as a community-based organization. And up to now, as we talk, about 650 girls have been educated to access high school through that kind of fundraising. So you must involve people. You must generate and use other resources outside the community and inside the community. But most importantly, you must be able to develop communication system where people can communicate. The moment communication is cut, then that means mistrust will start coming in. People won't be aware of what you want to do, and it will be very, very challenging for you to galvanize them into working with you. And that is why in the year 1997, when I was still a Form 3 student, equivalent of Form 3 is?
The year before your senior year.
Yes, the year before your senior year. So what we did is there was cholera outbreak in Korogocho. About 100 people died, and we said that we were just high school students. We didn't have money. We didn't have that capacity to raise resources, write proposals. So what we did is the only thing that we can do, having cholera is a hygiene issue. So it is us now to come up with ideas in terms of raising awareness so that people can know that you need to wash your fruits, for example, before eating. You need to wash your hands after visiting the toilet and such kind of things. And one of the things that we did was to come up with a community newspaper, Korogocho newspaper, which started as a tool for educating people on hygiene issues, but later on it started also addressing issues to do with governance. But at some point we learned that many people within the community were not able to read. The literacy rate in Korogocho is very high. So when you write in Kiswahili, many people are still being left out. So we decided to come up with Koch FM, which talks in slang, local slang, Sheng, and also Swahili, and a little bit of English. So four things that I want us to remember as we continue talking is community organization is fundamentally a grassroots process. It is not about an outside expert telling a community what it should do. Instead, it's about community members getting mobilized and organized to create change. In short, community organization is all about empowering people to improve their lives. So there are basically 4 types of community organization. Sometimes you can decide to only make use of one, but as you learn later, I've been making use of either the 4 of them as the situation demands. So the first one is organization for local development that creates infrastructure. Basically, you look for ways in which you create infrastructure within the community in terms of those groups and networks at the community level, and you now make use of those networks so that you can address issues that affect people in the community. Then the other one is social planning or policy change, and this involves engaging with the policy makers so that they can also do policy formulation and influence policy at that level. The other one is organizing for social action or systems advocacy, whereby you negotiate for community interests, and later on you will see how we've been able to do it. And then the 4th one is coalition building. So as you can see, it involves a lot of talking to people. Like over there, we were just launching, sometimes last year, a project in Kenya that addresses child trafficking issues, and we were able to influence a number of policy makers so that they can come on board and help us address human trafficking in the country. The other one is the Korogocho Mirror newspaper that I was telling you about. Actually, I'd mentioned it was 19 million. It was not 19 million. It was 41 million Kenya shillings that they had abused for CDF, and you can see the article that we gave there. I remember during this time, we were coming closer to elections in the year 2007. And the then member of parliament, he came to one of the functions in the community. You know, when politicians come to the community, they'll start talking very nicely to you, trying to give you reports of non-existent projects that have been able to support you. I think sometimes they think people are so stupid that you will not be able to know what they've done for you. So what we did was to distribute the newspaper for free. And I remember some of his opponents were sitting just next to him and were there reading, and the media was there capturing, and people chased him because he was lying to us. Now I'm going to go through each one of those 4 types of community organizing efforts. So number 1, I talked about the library services. And again, you'll realize that all these initiatives that we've started are initiatives that we started to address problems that you are facing, us, ourselves. So again, the issue of library, and I'm glad that my sister over here was talking about sending books back home, which is really, really a good thing. when you were in high school, like I had said, it's from very, very poor community. By that time, I didn't have my father because we only had a mother. My dad had died some times back. And you know, she was really struggling to pay for our school fees. So sometimes it really, really became hard for me to go back home and tell her, Mom, you know, I need to have this kind of textbook. I know there are so many textbooks that you need to read, including those novels for set books. So what we did is, because we were not able to get books, we talked amongst ourselves, those who were in high school during those days inside Korogocho. And we asked ourselves, how can we talk to people who've been in high school, especially those ones who've finished, so that they can donate their old books to us? So a number of people started donating. But as they were donating, the other question arose, where are we going to put them, where everybody else can access those books? So we needed a space where we can put the books safely. And remember, in Korogocho, most of the houses, when it rains, rain enters even your house. So it is very, very unsafe. So what we did was to talk to Father Alex again, the priest of the Catholic Church, and he gave us a very small space, actually from where Edna is sitting up to here to there. It was mild walled room where we were able to put some shelves there and also books. So it continued like that with people coming on board, donate books, and as we speak, it has a capacity of serving 350 students in Korogocho. So later on, when I went to university, my undergrad, I had developed skills in proposal writing. We were able to talk to other people, and UNIFEM became the first donor to support it. Then later on, Action Aid, then many other people came on board, and now it has a permanent infrastructure. Then the other one is the SACCO membership. So you can see we created SACCO. SACCO was founded with the intention of helping people to save on a daily basis so that they can use the savings to access loans, and also they get opportunities to be trained on how to enhance their business skills. So at the moment, we have 4,018 members of SACCO within Korogocho and outside Korogocho. Then the other one is the farm that we just created. It is good that now the new constitution that we had in the year 2010 allows youth to have opportunities for empowerment. Now, in the past, I remember, and Kenyans who are here will agree with me, is when it comes to elections, you will see very old people, people who cannot support themselves without walking stick, and were calling themselves youth. Some of them were like 70, 80. And then they'll be there telling us that youth are leaders of tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. So we waited for tomorrow, until now, I'm now grown up, almost coming up with white beards. But I'm happy that with the new constitution that we have, more opportunities. Now people are being forced to create opportunities for youth and women. 30% of any opportunity, either business opportunity, elective position, there must be women and youth. And because of that, now they have specific projects that youth can go for. But again, it requires that you must have a company. So we came up with creating farms so that people in Korogocho and outside Korogocho, those within the slum communities, can be able to access such kind of contracts. Then we've been working with about 119 community-based organizations. We put them into networks, and later on you'll be able to see. And these CBOs, we are there to build their capacity, help them get seed money, and also get some funds so that they can do some kind of interventions. And that one I've been able to do through Aggrey Foundation because it subgrants other people to do things. But Pambazuko Mashinani, the one I talked about, we started here when I was still a student and we were doing actual implementation. Then the other one is social planning or change. So like I had mentioned, we had Korogocho Mirror newspapers that I told you about. So it died. Actually, when I came to OU, it died because people were not able to sustain it, unfortunately, but it really created a lot of impact within the community. Then there is Korogocho Resident Association. So when we learned that there are so many funds that are being allocated for Korogocho to build schools, to build hospitals, to improve the road network, to come up with electricity infrastructure, these projects were not being implemented. One, they were taking advantage of ignorance level of the people in the community. People are not aware that these funds were there in the first place. So what we did was to organize Korogocho into Korogocho Resident Association. And through that, they elected their own people. So we were not in the leadership of the same. We gave them the space to run the show, but we just give them technical capacity. We showed them you can go here, get resources, and this is how you hold people accountable. So through Korogocho Resident Association, we were able to monitor the last debt that I told you about, and it is through the association that we went to court, and the councillor was able to refund us about 14.3 million shillings. Then there is the 99.9 Coach FM that I told you about, and then there is the TB project that we started in the year 2011. So 2011, I was just finishing, about to graduate in June here. And when I had gone back to home in 2010, my interest was on maternal and child health. But I was collecting data for my project. I realized that so many pregnant women in Korogocho were having tuberculosis. So when I came back, it really disturbed me, and we tried to look for ways in which we can design a new project. And again, Dr. Buster Tania's class really came helpful, because I made use of the logical model that you're learning there and some other models that we studied in her class to design this project. So I did a lot of phone calls and internet and email to organize people back there, recruit people. I remember some of you here helped me to shortlist those people that you are going to work with, and we trained community health workers, and these community health workers were able to work with the community to identify those people who had tuberculosis. You know, in Kenya, if you have tuberculosis, people usually fear that if you go to the hospital, they'll get the other disease, HIV. So they don't want to tie the two together. So because of that, there are a lot of stigma that went on. So we're able to identify those kinds of people and help them to go to the hospital. Some of them had developed MDR, and that meant that you had to go to do a lot of X-ray. They never had money to go for X-ray in the first place, so the project supported them to do that. And eventually, we did a lot of advocacy, and through the advocacy initiatives, for the first time ever, in the year 2012, Korogocho had the first public hospital in the community. Then the other one is organizing for social action or systems advocacy. Like I had said, Aggrey Willis Foundation is there. Through Aggrey Willis Foundation, what we are doing is to empower people to become community organizers. Then they identify challenges on their own within the community. We work together to raise resources locally, and then we support them to come up with the interventions. So at the moment, a number of projects are going on. And through Aggrey Willis Foundation, as you can see, in the year 2012 in December, we had Miss Lucky Summer. So the lessons that we had learned in Korogocho, we are now taking them to other areas, and people are really looking up to people from Korogocho for the first time ever as very valuable people in terms of social change initiatives that we are doing within the community. So Miss Lucky Summer, you can see it happened, and the theme was mobilizing community action for new Lucky Summer. I remember in Lucky Summer, the road is very dusty. In the year 2014, the Member of Parliament had received about 51 million Kenya shillings to construct road. What he did was to look for dust and put them on the road, and he gave a very beautiful report back to the government that the road has been tarmacked. So what I did with this, and you can see the first picture where there was a very big crowd in the other slide that I had shown you. I was there as the main guest, and I made an announcement with an ultimatum that we are giving you 3 months. If you don't tarmac the road, we are going to tarmac it, and then we remove you out of office. 3 months later, now, by the time I'm coming here, tractors are there working. Then the other one is the pig and coffin protests that I told you about, especially Boniface Mwangi has been very good in this, and through that, he has been able to bring in the fore the plight that people faces. And most of the time, Boniface Mwangi is very active, and he uses these kind of things when you want to highlight issues to do with corruption and also issues to do with the high salaries that the politicians are giving themselves. Right now, as I'm talking, this is the 3rd week that our children are not going to school because teachers are on strike. Teachers are demanding to be given money. I remember my high school teacher the other day told me, the one who taught me in high school, he told me when I visited him that, you know, teachers in Kenya are like a signboard. Aggrey, remember when you were here, I was a signboard telling you that for you to be successful, go this way. But I'm not going there. I'm just standing here showing people. So people are just passing me as they go to the other end. So teachers really had an impact on us, but unfortunately, they are not well remunerated, and now they're demanding for more pay. But the argument they are giving is, Kenya has money. It is only that we are putting them on the wrong use through corruption. Then the other one is beauty pageants. We did Miss Koch. We had Miss Lucky Summer. This year, during Valentine's Day, we took Valentine to Mathare. I know some of you know Mathare, so there was Miss Waraka there in Mathare, and a number of things are going on. The moment we do these kind of things, girls will come out. Most of the time, they are very shy, so we get them. They make use of the beauty pageants as an attraction center, so when they come out, then we have facilitators who nurture them, build their confidence, and then slowly we start building them and organizing them for other social change issues. So a number of things are still going on there. But we also make use of soccer tournaments, especially for boys. I remember in the TB project, one of the things that you were doing was to enhance the number of people who are able to go for the TB test. But again, people are not coming out. So in 2010, when I went for my holiday, we came up with the first soccer tournament. It was successful, Hamau. In 2011, when I went back, we came with a different concept. The winner of the tournament gets a trophy. But in this case, the trophy was not that trophy that you know of. It was a goat. So you win, you get a goat, you slaughter it and enjoy as a community. Number two, also get some number of goats. Then the third one, we continue learning lessons. So we still saw that a number of people were coming out and they were getting the information, but again, they were still not going for testing. So what we did, and again, there is also Dandora dumping site, for those of you who are aware, which is the largest dumping site in Kenya. So many people from Korogocho usually go to the dumping site so that they can get scrap metals and such kind of things that they can resell and get some money. But again, the Dandora dumping site is very feared. People fear it because of insecurity. Mungiki operates there. So many people, especially NGOs that deals with interventions that can support them, they fear going inside the Dandora dumping site. So what I did was to encourage them to form a team. So even me, I fear going into the Dandora dumping site. I think the last time I went, I was with David Conrad, who's also an alumni here, so I've been with him twice. But I can tell you those 2 times that I went to Dandora, you are just on toes, just in case anything happens. So what we did was to make them come out of Dandora dumping site. So they came up with their own football team, and they were able to participate and to compete with the other teams. And what happened is, for you to win, you don't only score like the way you score goals in the normal tournament, but you also score points by mobilizing your friends to go for tests. The moment you get a confirmation from the hospitals that you are working with, then we award you points. So through that, people were able to have fun, enjoy, and at the same time, I was able to get my objective of making sure that people know their status. Then there is the coalition building. So there I've put a photo of my late brother. He died in the year 2013. And this is, I can say, he's the father of coalition building in the country. He started his own initiatives, just like mine, the ones that you are doing, but he went a different direction. What he did when he was still in Korogocho is he really got annoyed that we were in mild world house. There was no electricity. We were using those kerosene lamp. There was no water, so sometimes water is not there, and you have to go to school. So you can imagine going to school without bathing for 2 days. And because of the soot that comes from kerosene line, you can know what kind of stuff comes from your nose. So it was crazy, and this guy really got disturbed. And what he did was to try organizing people to form a federation through which you can save 1 shilling per day. His dream was, by saving 1 shilling per day, one day, including us, will be able to own a house in Nairobi. So personally, I was one of those people who were pessimistic. I was like, 1 shilling per day? For how long are you going to save? But the guy really pushed, and by the time he died, he was the chair of Muungane wa Navijiji, the membership of that organization. Those who were active were 167,000. And by the time he died, they had 5,000 acres that they owned with a title deed in Mukuru, for those who know Mukuru, which is another slum in Nairobi, and it was ready for construction. So it has not started yet. If you go to Kambimoto, I remember in 2010, for those of you who went with me in Nairobi, together with Dr. Howard, we were able to visit some of the houses that he had constructed through the initiative. So coalition building, bringing people together, and you have coalitions is very, very powerful. But the first one that I did through TB project, it was actually called Coalition Against Tuberculosis. So a number of people coming on board, a number of stakeholders. Like I had mentioned, we made use of the radio station that we had founded. We had community health workers that we had trained. We worked with the community health workers to identify patients who need to be supported, and we put them in social support groups. And then we also brought on board stakeholders, especially NGOs, through which we had forums with them. And through that, we were able to have 1 health facility in Korogocho. That is before constructing the new one that had drugs for tuberculosis. Most of the time, if you had tuberculosis, you really had to struggle accessing health center. So we made sure that drugs were available for people within the community. And the coalition really, really helped in doing that. Then the other one also, which is also new, is the movement against child trafficking in Kenya. And we had a project that is still ongoing. It started last year in October in Mukuru and Mathare. So what we did was to create awareness of the same. Of course, after doing some baseline survey, and we had learned that Mukuru and Mathare are really leading in terms of urban child trafficking, and we worked with other NGOs, about 6 of them, that we are sub-granting so that they can do awareness and have specific interventions within the community. So the interventions are on awareness, so working on them to be aware of the same and help us identify children who have been trafficked from other areas to those 2 slums. So trafficking happens within Nairobi. It also happens within the country. So people coming from the rural part of Kenya to Nairobi, and they're trafficked into sexual exploitation. They're trafficked into domestic work and such kind of things, organized crime, organized begging. And again, we've also had cases of children being trafficked from Uganda in Tanzania. So what we do is to help them, rescue them through the police, take them to safe places. So we have about 3 shelters in Nairobi where they're taken for temporary. We do a needs assessment through social workers that we have, and then we are able to see the kind of assistance that they need. Some of them have been raped, sexually abused, so they need medical attention. So we support them to go to the hospital. Others, we've gotten perpetrators, and they need some legal aid, so we have a lawyer to do that. Others, we need to take them back to school. So about 400 are in school at the moment, and some of them are being taken for vocational training, especially those ones who are old enough and they do not feel like going back to school, but they want to have some skills like hairdressing, tailoring, and such kind of things. So those ones are happening also through the movement. But now there are a number of factors that you need to consider when you are doing community organizing. One is interest in the effort. You have to gauge the interest of the community in the kind of initiatives that you want to work with them. So the interest must be there. That means that you have to address the felt needs of the community. I remember there was a time when we were still in Korogocho, Action Aid came up with a project for latrine. You are all aware about the flying toilets. For those who are aware, I can see some people smiling. So where you shit in a plastic bag and you throw it away. And people usually joke that Kibera, which most of you are aware of, led in the flying toilet. And for a very long time, the opposition leader, Honorable Raila Odinga, has been the member of parliament for that constituency for so long, and at some point was also the prime minister of our country. But you know the way he talks. So he talks like, doing like this. So people are joking that he does like this because he has to escape the shit from hitting his head. So you must know the interest. So in Korogocho, NGOs came to Korogocho, and they started building pit latrines for us. Unfortunately, up to now, those pit latrines are not being used. Some of them, people are using them to dump garbage. So we learned later on that probably it was not a felt need. You need to have food in your stomach for you to shit. So probably they would have addressed that kind of things. Then the other issue is ethnicity, especially in a country like Kenya where people are really, really sensitive about this. Then you have to make sure that all the ethnic groups within that community own the process. Then the other one is gender. Of course, men, women, and also youth should be incorporated. Then you should also identify a geographical region that you want to target. Like in our case, we've been targeting Korogocho in that matter. Then you have to look at the kind of people that you want to work with, their income level. But again, there's also the issue of class identification. A number of us have been able to move outside Korogocho to middle class areas, but we still identify ourselves with Korogocho. So probably you might want to tap onto them because they are professionals so that they help the people of community of Korogocho to move forward. So again, class identification. You can not only identify those people to work with who are within the geographical area that you've targeted, but also those people who've moved out and they have the technical know-how to support your issue. The other one is age. So sometimes you might want to put children on their own, youth on their own, or sometimes you might do to a mix-up. Like the Korogocho Resident Association, it was a mix-up, especially of elderly people and also women and youth. But some of the initiatives like Miss Koch Beauty Pageant was basically for youth. It depends with the kind of activities that you want to do. You make sure that they are culturally sensitive. Then the other one is the language. So if you have a meeting of the youth, you can speak in English because they understand. You can speak in Sheng. But if you are targeting people who are elderly, then you must be assured that most of them do not understand English and they do not know Sheng. So you better start talking probably in the local languages like Kikuyu, Luo, if most of them are coming from those communities, or Kiswahili, which is the national language. Then again, you have to identify organizations that can bring valuable resources and constituencies with them. Like the Miss Koch Beauty Pageant that I mentioned about, we know we needed Hilton Hotel because people will feel safe when they are inside Hilton Hotel. We needed people who are from middle class. We needed their money. And at the same time, we needed people from Korogocho itself. So you must be able to identify these people. Oh. Yes. Then, how do you engage in community organizing? One, get to know the community, like I had mentioned earlier. Identify the reasons that the community is likely and they are willing to be organized for. The other one is determine the opinion leaders, like I had mentioned earlier. Otherwise, some of the gatekeepers, if you don't involve them from the word go, they'll become the biggest impediment to your project. They'll start fighting you for various reasons. So you have to know how to play the community politics with them. Then build a communication system. Like I said, we had Coach FM Korogocho Mirror newspaper, and sometimes you also do one-on-one communication with the people. Then encourage leadership from the community, make them own the process, then create a structure to help the community to accomplish its goals. I think we are almost. Oh, okay, you can do it with that. Then the other one, define the most important issues that relate to the community. Like when we started with the Miss Coach, the main issue at that time was raping of women. Then we graduated to school education. The main issue with Korogocho Resident Association was accountability issues in the slum. The main issue that Pambazuko Mashinani addressed is maternal and child health and tuberculosis also. So you must have specific issues that you want to address. Develop a strategic plan together with the community members themselves for them to own the process. Most of the time, when people are developing strategic plan and they do the budget, they think of resources, where they come from. Most of the time when you think in terms of resources, especially financial resources, you think of external donors. But as you can see, almost 90% of financial resources that we got were from the people themselves. So it depends on how you are going to organize them to do that. Then, of course, implement your plan, monitor and evaluate. Evaluation is very key. Like when we did the first Miss Scotch beauty pageant, we learned that there are a number of people who are not coming, so that evaluation. It was very rudimentary, not scientific, but at least we learned something, and we're able to develop from that and have a way forward. Then the other one is to make community organizing effort self-sustaining. Next slide. So in summary, there are 4 things that I want to bring to your attention as we conclude. One, the iron rule of community organizing is to never do for people what they can do for themselves. It should be a participatory process. Number 2, the power of an organized community working together to reach agreed upon goals is nothing short of a spectacular. There is no more important step to take than organization when trying to improve life in our communities, and it is very crucial for us to work with our communities to understand how to do so effectively. Then the other one, I want to quote Martin Luther King, who all of you know was a great organizer. And you remember in 1968 in Memphis, he said, "Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. And let us move in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be." We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I finish by telling you to take that opportunity, that you work to organize people for a better community, for a better nation, and finally, for a better world. Thank you.
We have a few minutes for questions.
Oh.
Thanks a lot for your wonderful talk. That was really great. And by the way, I'm Young Kim in geography, and I teach urban geography. There we talk about this urban communities and organizing community activities in inner cities, U.S. inner city neighborhoods there. And then, let's say, a lot of cases, the difficulty comes from that our communities, how do we define the community? Let's say, during the 1990s, under the Clinton administration in this country, there was $1 billion commitment from the federal government for the community activities in inner city neighborhoods. 8 cities were chosen for this. So there was a big money there, and communities. There were plenty of organizers there. So a lot of things were going on, but the difficulty for them was really trying to identify who belongs, who doesn't, and how to draw the boundaries, whether that's a geographical boundary or socioeconomic boundaries. So I was wondering whether you faced the same problems here. You say that working for our communities, but how do you define that?
Yeah, so community, basically there should be common characteristics that people are sharing. So like in our case, we saw ourselves as people belonging to Korogocho community because of Korogocho itself being a village. So the moment you were born or you are living within Korogocho, then you saw yourself as members of that community. But again, like I had mentioned, there are also those people who moved outside Korogocho and they had those technical know-how or even resources that can help people in Korogocho to advance their goals. Then they are still part of Korogocho by the virtue that they were brought and born in Korogocho, though they've moved. So it is very fluid in terms of if you put yourself in one box and say this is the definition of the community, then you might end up now leaving other people outside. So sometimes, like myself, I can say that I'm a community member of Ohio by the virtue that I'm an alumni. You guys are community members of Ohio by virtue of being students and faculty of this institution. So maybe if there's a project targeting Ohio, so Ohio becomes the bottom line. So you have to look at the bottom line. What is the bottom line that brings people together? So like in our case, it was Korogocho. Peter?
Yes, please. Thank you for that inspiring presentation to us. My question is about the ongoing kind of empowerment programs going on from the national government, from the National Youth Service, for instance. Just how in the same Slum areas where the initiatives are operating. How are you relating?
How do we relate? So he's talking about the National Youth Service project. NYS has been there over the years. It was started, I think, by President Moi, but Uhuru Kenyatta is really making use of NYS to reach out to more youth. And what they are doing in the slums, especially, it started in Kibera, went to Mathare, it is now in Korogocho and Mukuru within Nairobi, and it has moved to Kisumu also. Is NYS to enter community, they identify youth who are not working, organize them according to their sub-villages, especially the sub-villages that I had mentioned in Korogocho. So there are about 380 of them in each village, organize themselves into leadership, but what they do is to clean the community. So every day you start doing cleanup, and Korogocho now is very clean because of that. Kibera is very clean, I believe. So is Mukuru and Mathare, getting cleaner than it was before. And what happens is they get paid. So they're getting about 400 shillings per day, and they usually get the money through M-Pesa every Saturday. But what happens is the project deducts 150 every day. So this one, they save it up to 6 months when you are in that project, and then later on, after graduating from the project, you are able to be supported by seed money using your own savings to start a project. It is a very noble idea, and it is going on. So as we are taking advantage, personally, I'm not into garbage collection, so there is no conflict of interest between the kind of projects that I'm doing. But again, they are the same community members, so it is really making my work easier because they have money, and I have people that are well organized, so I don't need to pay people to mobilize people for me because they are there. Already the project has mobilized them. So it is very easy to complement by targeting them with some of the projects that we are having. So it is a complementary initiative.